YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here. Hey, I gotta do a little bit of unit testing. I know, it's been a while. But, I messed with the Lore of Heavens in a recent battle, and I just wanted to try out a couple of spells, because I haven't tried them in a long time. One of which is Chain Lightning. So, I noticed that Purple Sun as Rus worked really good against Dwarf Warriors, and Dwarf units in general. So, I'm gonna try and create a Dwarf Blob here, and then hit them with the Chain Lightning. So, I don't think it can be overcast. Ooh, that could be a problem if it can't be overcast. I don't think it can. Doesn't look like it can. And the reason that's a problem is because Vortex spell... Yeah, it can't be overcast. Yeah, the reason that's a problem is because overcast Vortex spells slow down and will stay in the same spot longer. So that's actually a huge problem for Chain Lightning if it can't be overcast, because it pretty much means that when they patch some of these vortexes to try and make them more useful, Chain Lightning will never be so. Unless it sits still. But even right there, I mean, that's a pretty solid sitting on top of him, and it does some pretty decent damage. Picked up 18 kills and took a pretty fair amount of hit points off here. But you can see that the spell still just kind of moves around in every which direction and is probably 100% likely to kill your own men. Let's try out Arenan's Thunderbolt, or that's Comet of a casandora. What does it do when you overcast? Extra damage, I think. Let's get rid of that. Arenan's Thunderbolt. If we overcast it, greater armor piercing damage. I was told that this does good against large models or low unit count. Let's see how it does against blobs of infantry. This is an overcast, so it should do extra piercing. That was pretty impressive, actually. That was pretty impressive. It did a lot of work. It didn't give me any kills, but it dropped the hit points in some of these units by a significant amount. Let's mess with this breath spell real quick. I haven't used it in a long time. I don't think the breath spell is going to do any good. If I remember right, you kind of want your target right at the edge of the breath spell. If it can be overcast, I don't have enough magic, so let's wait. There we go. What does the overcast do? Increased armor piercing. Alright, let's see. There we go. I'm a little too close. Let's cancel it, get a little further out here. Try and get lined up a little bit better. There we go. Maybe right about here, I think. Eh. Well, I ended up getting a bunch of kills, but it could have just been because there was already significantly weakened troops. I don't know, it's kind of interesting, the results there. Let's go check out a couple more tests. Alright, I got another test lined up here. I'm going to bring a bunch of trolls because they're low unit count and large units. I want to try the Arenan's Thunderbolt. Hopefully I can get like a bunched up group of them. I've just got like a halberd square going on here. It kind of looks like a CPU. Like the bottom of a CPU. Ooh, yeah, we should have a perfect test right here. So Arenan's Thunderbolt, large units, low unit count. Let's see. I don't know. Wasn't that impressive. Didn't see anything that, Here, let's have a little fun. Chain Lightning. While we're at it. Sweet. Right over the top of our own men. Look at it. Now you know why no one uses this spell. Look, it just routed my entire army. Good grief. CA, please. Fix the vortexes. Pit of Shades, awesome. Wind of Death, makes sense. You know, even an overcast Purple Sun, slightly unpredictable, but a lot more predictable than that. And, yeah, stuff like this, though, boy, it just doesn't make sense. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, there's no real way to use the spell because every time you use it, you're just as likely to kill your own army. Anyway, maybe let's try it against Cavalry. I mean, it should be the same as a troll, but let's just see. So we're going to try this against Empire Knights. It's a fairly well-armored unit. I've got my CPU formation going on again. And hopefully the AI will blob a big bunch of these guys, and they're doing like one random one over here. The AI is trying to outflank me and hasn't quite figured out that there is no such way to do it. Alright, here we go. Let's try and find the biggest concentration of enemy cavalry. Lightning strike. It damaged one of the units quite a lot. This one right there took quite a bit of damage, but it didn't do a whole lot beyond that. Let's maybe try it again. Let this thing go through the cooldown. I think our troops can survive that long. Of course, the enemy cavalry will take damage repeatedly. Coming in. Come on, come on. 2, 1, here we go. Let's wait for an opportunity for... I'm worried the AI is going to pull a unit out, but let's try it real quick. Here we go. Don't! Sit still! You pieces of crap. Way to cooperate. Well, I mean, it kind of worked alright on one of those Empire Knights, but... I mean, it didn't blow me away by any means. I don't know, that almost looked like it worked better against dwarf infantry than it did any of these cavalry units that I've seen so far. We can try one more, see if we can get one last test out of this one. We've got enough winds of magic. It's a matter of whether there's enough enemy cavalry left and the idiots are actually doing the right thing and cycle charging, which I rarely see the AI do. Come on, sit your butt still. Sit still. Get him. Yeah, I mean, it does pretty substantial damage when you get a good hit. I mean, it doesn't annihilate them like the Foot of Gork, but it does seem to do pretty good damage to the high armored units and ones that have enough mass, which would explain why it worked good against the Dawe infantry. And just for kicks, maybe we should go use a breath spell on my own troops before we leave. Because I'm just that nice, people. I am just that nice. Merry Christmas. Alright, just a couple more things I want to test. I'll see you back. So one thing I wanted to test is 2 units being equal. In this case, 2 Karl Franz on Deathclaw with no abilities. What happens if one unit gets debuffed by Curse of the Midnight Wind, and then the friendly unit gets buffed by Harmonic Convergence? So if we take away 34 melee attack and armor, and then give 36 melee defense, and it looks like both can be overcast, and then it throws in an additional effect on armor, but that's 10 magic, and the overcast here is 17, so we're going to need 27 magic for this to work, which we should have shortly. So what we will do is we will debuff the enemy Karl Franz with an overcast Curse of the Midnight Wind, and then we will buff our own Karl Franz and see how much difference it makes with 2 units that, in this case, are exactly equal. Let's go. I gotta keep my wizard at such a distance that the enemy Karl Franz doesn't try to charge him. Okay. Comes the debuff, so that I know it's in play immediately. And the buff on my own Karl Franz, please. Wow, it just didn't want to click on him. What's interesting is that the enemy Karl Franz was actually winning that fight, even while debuffed. There is some degree of luck to the charge on whether or not your character actually lands a hit. Now that the fight is proceeding, there appears to be a pretty large balance in my favor here. So 2 overcast spells. Is it worth it? I mean, you could debuff multiple enemy units with Curse of the Midnight Wind, so you could easily justify the casting of it. The Harmonic Convergence, I mean, it's 11 magic to temporarily buff up 1 unit. If that was an absolutely critical unit, sure. And you can see it made a pretty significant difference. It was a convincing victory for 2 units that are absolutely equal. So, it's just interesting results. Kind of wonder what that looks like in terms of an infantry fight. So, let's check that out. Alright, for the next test, I have 2 identical units of great swords going head to head. We're going to perform the same magic. Okay, so Curse of the Midnight Wind, Harmonic Convergence. Used at the same time, equal unit on equal unit, 2 units of great swords. See, there's a massive impact in this fight. My unit of great swords is just absolutely crushing the enemy, who only got a little bit of damage while their charge was active, and then their melee attack is going to go straight to 0 for over 50 seconds. And then mine were buffed during that time as well, so it gave them an enormous lead. You can see that Curse of the Midnight Wind here, if it's like units, would be able to put some massive hindrance on an opponent. That has 30 armor and 34 melee attack dropped, and it leaves my unit nearly undamaged. And then Harmonic Convergence can be single cast again here, so it's not going to give my guys bonus armor, but will once again give them massive melee attack and defense. So if you had a clutch fight that had to be won, this is one potential way of using Lore of Heavens to do it. How feasible is this in an online match? I guess it depends. I guess it depends on how clutch the battle is that you're supporting with this. I think Curse of the Midnight Wind has obvious merit. It can affect multiple units at once and pretty much ruins about any unit for almost a minute. You can't argue with the results there. It could be good against Lords, it could be good against Infantry, it could be especially good against blobs. And it used to be used extensively back when Bretonnia was the peasant Bretonnia. So if we go back and take a look, I'm going to end the battle. Let's take one more overall look at the Lore of Heavens and some of the other merits that come with it. If you look at the ability, the special ability is Roiling Skies. So supposedly should help you, right? It takes away missile parry and melee defense for any flying unit map-wide all the time. So Lore of Heavens is kind of meant dominance of the skies, I guess, is the way you get that. Though the spells themselves, could they be used to dominate the skies? Some of them. Again, Curse of the Midnight Wind has obvious merit, being able to take away significant stats from your opponent for 50 seconds. And it is a 200-meter cast range, which is pretty impressive. Same thing with Harmonic Convergence. It's a 200-meter cast range, so that means your wizard can support from considerable distance, meaning you may not even have to spend money to put them on a Pegasus or a horse, as long as you can keep your guys close enough. Chain Lightning, to me, is one of those things that you cast in campaign just for fun, to see if you get lucky, and it kills some of your enemies, because otherwise in multiplayer, this thing's so unpredictable, it's just as likely to kill you as it is your enemy. The least I think Creative Assembly could do with these type of spells is have them move in a mostly predictable fashion. Mostly predictable. Okay, it doesn't have to be a perfect straight line or slant or something else like that, but anything would be better than what it does currently. Comet of Casandora, actually, this is the same as the one that gets used from the Chalice of Potions. I mean, this thing definitely has merit, and I'm guessing the Chalice of Potions doesn't do an overcast version of it. I could be wrong. We could go look real quick, but it just causes magical damage if you overcast it. It's greater armor piercing explosion. It does a lot of damage. The overcast version is extremely expensive. We could go take a look and see whether it's worth it, but then you just got your standard version here. Let's go look at the Chalice of Potions real quick. Carcassonne. Oh, no, wait. Well, yeah, actually, it can work. You can't pick any lord with these sub-factions, but we can take a look at the item nonetheless. Yeah, so it looks like a not overcast Comet is pretty much what it is. So, I mean, I would say it's probably worth it based on the magic cost. It's not too expensive, if I caught that right. 12? I think at 12 it's pretty fair. I mean, it can do a fair amount of damage when it's not overcast against infantry blobs. So this could be useful against a vampire player who's blobbing a lot of stuff on you. It could be useful against any greenskin blob, of savage orcs or stuff like that. So I would say that it could be useful. But let's go try an overcast one versus a regular one and see what difference it makes, if any. We'll try it on some dwarf infantry since they're high armor. Alright, we are getting ready for the Comet of Casandora test. So here's the un-overcast version against Dawi infantry. I'm going to leave the banners up so you can see the damage levels. Here comes the Comet. That was pretty significant damage to multiple units. it didn't like annihilate units, but it did a lot of damage to that unit and not inconsequential damage to several units around it. So that was pretty impressive, not gonna lie. What I might do is just go ahead and reload this same scenario, and let's try the overcast version rather than casting it against units that are already damaged. So let's see what that looks like. For the overcast test, the dwarves have favored me with a rather large blob of Dawi. You can see that all these units are relatively undamaged to begin with, so this ought to be a pretty good look, and quite the explosion on top of it. Woo! I would definitely say that is worth 24 magic if you can get the right spot to cast it on, and it's certainly worth the 12 standard cast if you don't have as good a target but you need to do some damage. I mean, that was incredible. That did huge damage to the Dawi. Here, let's power scroll this thing and have some fun. Let's drop another Comet here without being overcast, just to see what kind of damage we can do. It doesn't give me any kills for the Comet, which is unfortunate, because it would be curious to see just how many Dawi actually die as a result. Doesn't look like a ton. Wow. It does a pretty good amount of damage on concentrated infantry like that. So, interesting. So, I mean, again, looks like both versions of the Comet have their use. So I think that, although I haven't gone through and tested like the breath spell per se, I think it's pretty clear the general gist of what Lore of Heavens is all about. It's supposed to give your characters somewhat of an edge in a aerial duel due to the ability carried by that wizard. And then from a spell standpoint, seems like it's all about big infantry brawls or very key fights in a battle, in the sense that Curse of the Midnight Wind can be the critical moment in a battle. You cast it, and if your opponent is too blobbed up or you get him in the right spot with it, you're going to really hurt him. And Harmonic Convergence is kind of like, I think this is more of like a hero and a lord support spell, or your key unit of infantry or a monster or something like that, you support it with this to help it do extra damage and stay safe at a key moment. Iranon's Thunderbolt is a blob breaker, which is what it seems best for. Blob breaker, or maybe support in a cavalry fight. And then Comet of Casandora is more of a infantry blob breaker, is what it looks like, and the overcast version does extensive damage to armor. And I would assume that it would do pretty good damage to cavalry as well. Most likely, I didn't get a chance to test it here. Chain Lightning is your wild card. Just don't use it. Like I said, this is something to be used against the AI just for laughs. Otherwise, not very useful. Anyway, Lore of Heavens. I don't know. Do you guys know anything about this that you think I missed? I know I didn't test the breath spell extensively, but it's probably not all that great. Breath spells tend to just knock stuff over and not do a lot of damage. But I mean, I would assume it could be decent if used from a flank and on the right type of unit. I don't think this thing's going to do a whole lot of armor-piercing damage, but maybe it's good against more lightly armored foes. So, like I said, be curious to see what you all think, but Lore of Heavens, use it if you want to gain control of the sky and have a little fun culling stuff down from the sky. Anyway, HeirofCarthage signing out for now. Hope this has been helpful. Appreciate MSI being a great sponsor. I hope to see you all back in more videos. If you enjoyed this, feel free to subscribe. It'll keep you up to speed with the newest videos that I'm able to put out. And also, as always, please make sure to tell me what else you want to see in the comments. I'll see you next time.